which is elite competence. So elite competence is very obviously declining. You can see that it's declining either from accident rates. You can see that it should be declining based on lack of meritocratic selection. You have a whole pile of disparate elements of data that all agree here. Elite competence is declining. And
Hmm.
so what you have is an empire that should be weaker to external forces, but it's an empire that has almost no external enemies. And so, what happens next? Well, the article makes the argument that complex systems are beginning to collapse, and you'll see, you know, it doesn't directly make, but it kind of implicitly makes a billions must die kind of argument. Um, I
I didn't catch that part.
Well, so I mean, it talks about the complex system of global trade. If you think about the consequences of the breakdown of the complex system of global trade, it basically means the entire population of the third world dies because the entire population of the
Yeah.
third world is dependent on food exported from like
Right.
a half a dozen countries.
Yeah,
So,
I remember during the lockdowns that people predicted, and I think their predictions came true, that because of some of the decisions that were being made in the developed world, the developing world would disproportionately suffer.
yeah, there was
Yeah.
a pretty harsh famine, particularly in East Africa, but
Hmm.
the scale of that, um, for for better or for worse, the third world is a lot better off today than it was 30
Yes,
years ago.
it
And
is.
so the scale of that destruction was less than some people feared.
Right.
But nevertheless, if you're predicting the collapse of complex systems in the West, you're implicitly predicting an absolute catastrophe for people outside the West.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's one element. The other question is elite unity, uh,
Right.
and this is a complicated question. So if you want to understand the, so you have radically divergent opinions as to how well aligned the interests of the elite that operate the global American empire
Yeah,
are.
I was going to comment, Black Horse, that I'm not able to pull a site out of my brain, but I'm thinking of Nicholas Soldo and
Yeah, you have
different
Soldo at
commentators.
one end of the spectrum, and you
Yeah,
have Charles Haywood at the other end of the spectrum.
right. So Nicholas Soldo would be they are more united than ever, and I think right.
Yes, he would be
Yeah,
the.
and
They're very united, and Haywood would say, push a little bit on them, and they'll fracture into a million pieces.
right, right. So in other words, these are two people who are, how do we put it, fully read up. They've taken all the red pills. They know all the stuff. They all know all the elite theory, and yet they have different perspectives on this particular issue, right?
Yes,
So it's a complex. I think where we would be more agreed across all of these thinkers here on the competence issue than we would be on the unity issue. Fair to say.
that's absolutely fair to say.